complaining that every time we have a forum like this, women issues is always coming last. So I said, no, it's not like that. One of the panelists, Aisha Ado, is having a class between 12 and 3, and we immediately organized to push us back. So that's why. And you know us, they will not even think of pushing us back. So we just, we requested for it. And thank you so much. Looking at the topic, the role of women lawyers in addressing security challenges in northern Nigeria. When I saw the topic at first, I was like, wow. I know that this is a topic that is very, very important and actually necessary. To me, when I saw it, it's actually an honor for me to say something as far as the role of women in addressing security challenges in northern Nigeria is concerned. I feel it's a privilege for us because looking at what is happening around us as far as security is concerned, and the role women are playing. Before even becoming lawyers, women are the backbone of the community. If we look at our community generally, you cannot downplay the role of women in every ramification. So when I look at it, I say to myself, this is an honor, and looking at it beyond the courtrooms. Beyond courtrooms, women lawyers have serious roles to play. We are advocates of justice, we are advocates of peace, we are advocates of peace building. We are advocates for the less privileged that are affected through insecurity. So we have a very serious role to play in this. And the importance of the role of women is actually embedded in the United Nations Resolution on Security 1325, which spells out how important the role of women is, and we cannot overemphasize the role women play as far as security is concerned. So by way of introduction, security is the foundation upon which justice, development, education, commerce, and human dignity rest. Without security, communities collapse, institutions weaken, and the rule of law becomes threatened. Northern Nigeria today continues to face enormous security concerns, ranging from insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, communal conflict, gender-based violence, human trafficking, drug abuse, and displacement of the vulnerable population. In the midst of all these challenges, women lawyers have emerged as important actors in advocacy, justice delivery, peace building, and protection of human rights. Northern Nigeria has over a decade experienced serious security disruptions that have affected millions of lives. The consequences have been devastating, which includes loss of lives and properties, internal displacement of families, increased poverty and unemployment, sexual and gender-based violence, disruption of education, especially for girls, weakening of confidence in institutions. I believe all of us here in Kenya are witnesses of all these crises that have been mentioned. When the Boko Haram started, we knew how Kenya became congested because of the migrants. We knew how it became congested. We were privileged to visit IDP camps in Borno State, even here in Kenya. We know how people live in those camps. Small girls are out of school, which is very, very dangerous, and the life of the camp is something else. And women play a very, very vital role in making sure the community is brought back where it should be. Women and children remain the most affected as far as security is concerned. Anywhere there is issues of security, you find out the women and children that are the most affected because they're the vulnerable. Anytime we're talking about human rights, people tend to think that we are advocating for just women. Human rights is for everybody, but women and children are always being mentioned because they are the most vulnerable. God forbid if something happens here. I know before we, the women, find ourselves outside this ceremonial court, probably maybe all the men are even outside. They have finished running. They are out there. They are saying, okay, where is this person? Where is this person turning around to make sure that we are out? So it's just that the women are vulnerable. That is why women and children are always placed in the forefront as far as the security and what have you are concerned. Understanding the security challenges in northern Nigeria, the major security concerns in the region are number one, terrorism and insurgency. We have it. When Boko Haram before, we were like, okay, Boko Haram. I was always, if we are discussing security situation, I always say, what are we going to have that is worse than this insurgency? By the time bandits come to us, it was almost bandit, it was almost insurgency promise. By the time it was almost insurgency promise. Because insurgency, they will come, they will work on places, either you are in or out. But this banditry and kidnapping is just something on another level. Because ransom is being asked for, you might survive, you might not survive. Just some days ago, I believe a former member of the House of Reps was kidnapped. He and his friend. Ransom was requested about some hundreds of millions. Then I think it was reduced. Then the money was taken. The man was killed. So the uncertainty is just too much. Then farmer and header conflict, that is the conflict that we know about. Gender-based violence, they are all challenges of insecurity. Human trafficking and drug abuse. Because you find out the human trafficking and drug abuse goes higher when you have all these vices in the community. And weak access to justice. Weak access to justice because people actually, many victims of insecurity, they lack access to access to justice. They don't know where to go because the institution has probably weakened. They don't know where to go to ask for help and all. Then strategic role of women lawyers, advocating for human rights and the rule of law. Women lawyers play a critical role in ensuring that victims of insecurity obtain justice through legal representation, public interest litigation, and advocacy. Women lawyers defend constitutional rights and challenge impunity. Women lawyers also advocate for protection of internally displaced persons, enforcement of child protection laws, prosecution of sexual offenders, protection of widows and vulnerable women. By promoting accountability, women lawyers help strengthen public confidence in justice. Then there's also providing legal aid to the vulnerable. Many victims of insecurity cannot afford legal services. You cannot be a victim of insecurity with you to actually, out of 20 families of insecurity, you would hardly get 3 that can afford legal services. And anywhere there is insecurity, there is always bridges of human rights. Human rights is being bridged. The right of a woman is being bridged, the right of a man is bridged, the right of a child is bridged. A girl child cannot go to school. Boys cannot go to school due to insecurity. These interventions ensure that women lawyers have continuously stepped forward through pro bono services, legal clinics, humanitarian, human rights desk, community outreach programs. I know of the fact that we have been doing a lot of this, especially during the attack that happened in Italy. I know that we did a lot of outreach as far as sensitizing people, as far as their community is concerned, how to be security conscious, how to report, how to be speak on things that we are reporting and what have you. And most of us that have gone down to the community where we are female lawyers that prove ourselves to do that. We feel if we don't have money to give, what do we have to give back to our community? That is what we have taught. And these interventions ensure that poor and vulnerable persons are not denied justice because of financial limitations. And there are organizations that actually do that kind, right? Okay, I'll just skip and I'll leave the paper. Then challenges faced by women. Despite their contributions, women lawyers face several obstacles. These include cultural and social barriers, limited representation in decision-making spaces, security risks during field work, financial constraints, gender discrimination. And gender discrimination, I always like to call it systematic exclusion. I call it systematic exclusion because it's particularly in workplaces. Then inadequate institutional support. These challenges must be addressed to enable women lawyers to contribute more effectively to national security efforts. And I prefer a way forward. To strengthen the role of women lawyers in addressing insecurity, the following steps are necessary. Gender inclusion in security and policy discussions. Very, very important. Strengthening legal aid services, extremely important. Capacity building. Collaboration with security agencies and civil society. Economic and educational empowerment. Encouraging more women in leadership. This is very, very important because I always see it as I was actually discussing in the forum during International Women's Day at the National Assembly when we were talking about reserved seats for women. So I was giving an example with myself. I mentioned to them that I am not a political person. I am not, in fact, I actually don't even have the guts and encouragement and even support to bring myself out for a political position in the mainstream politics. I cannot do that. But it hurts me to look at myself and know that in my constituency in my jurisdiction, the only time we had a female that occupied an elected position and be part of a decision-making body is in, I think, either 1990, the election of 2003 election, when we had a single female that was voted for at the House of Assembly. So it always hurts me, and if we have women creating space for them to do that, it will curb a lot of things. We are the ones that know what is affecting us directly, what is affecting our immediate community, what is affecting the children. Nobody can speak for us the way we can speak for ourselves, and nobody can sing our music like us. So when I was saying that, I remember somebody, who was actually a politician, telling me that, yes, even her, it is the work that took her life. And I was shocked. But anyways, I gave him and we talked about it, and a lot of people were actually disappointed. But the point is, it is time, and we need to do better as far as this aspect is concerned. And in conclusion, the security challenges confronting Northern Nigeria requires collective action. It is not for women alone. Encourage and innovative solutions. Women lawyers possess the capacity, empathy, expertise, and resilience needed to contribute meaningfully to peace, justice, and national development. As defenders of the rule of law, women lawyers must continue to speak for the voiceless, defend the vulnerable, promote justice and accountability, build bridges of space of peace across communities. The future of Northern Nigeria depends not only on the military's strength, but also on justice, inclusion, and respect for women dignity. Women lawyers, therefore, remain indispensable partners in the pursuit of peace and security. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, our women Jamhuri tribe, our legislative deputy, one of the women from October. She has been here with us this morning. Please, another big round of applause. The next presenter will be known the dignity. considering the fact that most of the presentation has been subsumed by
Thank you very much. So, I'll just get into it. So my mandate was to critically engage with the paper and enrich the discourse from diverse professional perspectives. So, this is a tough challenge, but I'm glad that I scribbled some of the points down because I was able to access the paper. So, but with time, let me just see what I can do. The paper by Huwaila Muhammad presents, I'll just maybe quickly read through so that at least the important points will be forwarded because it's not like a paper, it's just points that are scribbled. The paper presented by Huwaila Muhammad presents an important and timely intervention on the intersection between gender, law, justice, and insecurity in northern Nigeria. It is commendable and it commendably highlights the indispensable contributions of women lawyers in peace building, human rights advocacy, access to justice, and protection of vulnerable populations. The presentation is persuasive in demonstrating that women lawyers are not merely legal practitioners, but strategic actors in conflict prevention and societal stabilization. However, while the paper succeeds as an advocacy piece, there are several areas where the discourse may be deepened for greater legal, institutional, and policy impact. Need for stronger empirical and data-driven analysis. While the paper references insurgency, banditry, displacement, sexual violence, and weak access to justice, statistical evidence, case studies, original comparisons are crucial to substantiate the scale of these problems or the measurable impact of women lawyers in addressing them. For example, how many IGPs in northern Nigeria currently lack legal representation? Right? What percentage of sexual violence cases arising from conflict are successfully prosecuted? What has been the practical impact of organizations such as FIDA, NBA Women Forum, in conflict-affected states? So we have what FIDA people, well, all of us are. Including data would strengthen the argument from moral persuasion to evidence-based advocacy. Insecurity policy today increasingly requires evidence-based intervention. The legal profession must not only speak compassionately, but also demonstrate measurable outcomes. This is the kind of research that bodies like the University Center for Gender Studies, ably headed by my sister and friend, Ambassador Sekia Ahmed, need to seriously be supported to embark on because we need the information to be as impactful as we should be. Then insufficient engagement with technology, despite this conference theme is what? The
role of law and technology.
Law and so, given that the broader, I didn't hide it here. Given that the broader conference theme concerns law and technology in advancing insecurity, we must take a look at technology-driven legal interventions. Women lawyers today can leverage technology through digital legal aid platforms, virtual mediation systems, online reporting mechanisms for gender-based violence, AI-assisted, and I'm glad Huwaila Ibrahim today and Adam are here, AI-assisted legal documentation, cybersecurity awareness campaigns, digital rights advocacy, mobile justice platforms for rural communities, and technology-enabled witness protection systems. The future of access to justice in conflict
will increasingly depend on digital innovation. Women lawyers must therefore occupy not only courtrooms, but also digital spaces where justice is now being negotiated and delivered. Structural causes of insecurity. The presentation identified manifestations of insecurity. Now, let's interrogate structural causes. Security challenges in northern Nigeria, you may agree with me, are deeply connected to governance failures, poverty, unemployment, educational inequality, weak institutions, corruption, porous borders, climate change, resource competition, and political exclusion. A deeper legal analysis would ask, what role has constitutional failure played? How effective are existing security laws? Why do victims distrust formal justice systems? Why? What institutional reforms are necessary? So, women lawyers should not only respond to insecurity after violation occurs. We must also participate in shaping the socio-legal architecture that prevents insecurity from emerging in the first place. So, customary, religious, and informal justice systems. Another important factor to consider is the relationship between formal legal institutions and informal justice structures in northern Nigeria. In many communities, disputes are resolved through traditional rulers, religious leaders, community elders, informal mediation systems. Women often face barriers within these structures, yet these institutions remain highly influential. A critical question therefore arises: how can women lawyers effectively engage customary and religious systems without compromising constitutional rights and gender justice? This is particularly important in areas involving marriage, inheritance, domestic violence, reconciliation processes. So sustainable peace building in northern Nigeria requires legal pluralism that respects cultural realities while remaining firmly anchored in constitutionalism and human rights. The need for concrete legal reform proposals. The paper rightly advocates legislative reforms. A stronger intervention could identify specific laws requiring amendments, implementation gaps, institutional failures, and accountability deficits. For example, how effective is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act in other states, where the investigation remains uneven? Are terrorism-related prosecutions sufficiently protecting the victims? Should Nigeria develop specialized conflict and transitional justice courts? Is witness protection legislation adequate? These are things for us to ponder. Critical examination of barriers women lawyers face. The paper identifies barriers such as discrimination, underrepresentation, financial limitation, and security risks. I would add institutional patriarchy within the legal profession, political space, security institutions, and even justice administration itself. As an important question is, why are women still underrepresented in peace negotiations and security policy formulation despite their demonstrated contributions? Why? This is not merely a social issue, it is an institutional design problem. Women's exclusion from security governance is not accidental. It reflects long-standing structural inequalities that legal institutions themselves must confront. And mental health trauma justice. This is an often overlooked dimension of insecurity. Trauma. Victims of terrorism, abduction, sexual violence, and displacement usually require psychosocial support in addition to legal remedies. Women lawyers working with these survivors also experience secondary trauma and burnout, usually passes on to us. So this discussion could therefore expand into trauma-informed justice systems, victim-sensitive procedures, psychosocial rehabilitation, and restorative justice framework. Expanding the concept of security beyond military responses. One of the strongest concluding points in the paper is that security is not only about military strength. This idea can be developed further through the concept of human security, which includes economic security, food security, educational security or educational access, health security, environmental security, and peace, where justice is inaccessible. Poverty is widespread and women remain excluded from governance structures. This paper importantly reminds us that women lawyers are not peripheral actors in national security discourse. We are central to justice delivery, peace building, institutional accountability, and democratic stability. However, moving forward, the conversation must evolve from recognition to structural empowerment, supported by technology, institutional reforms, data-driven policy, and inclusive governance. Northern Nigeria does not merely need security operations, it needs justice-centered security architecture in which women lawyers are fully integrated as decision makers, reformers, and agents of sustainable peace. Go ahead, Pastor.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation made by Aisha Abdul-Abdullah, Ghana State Designate, former MBA National Past Trader. Please, a round of applause for her. Another big round of applause please for her. That here with us this morning they patiently stay behind and they are all with them. It is from them we know that we have only one Kano bar. The issue of Umboko and Kano are just later. Please, another big round of applause. Yes, we have two more presenters, and I think the remaining two are colleagues, but I feel I sight Adama in the black attire, Washington Hajara in the black attire, just last speaker in black attire, Hajja Huwaila in black attire, and Aisha Garba is also in black attire. So in that regard, I would like to skip the black attire first and go to our own Sumwe Akwata. Please, a round of applause for her.
Thank you very much.
I believe 2 minutes will be enough for
Yes,
her.
2 minutes is enough. But they have said a lot about the topic. But there's one thing I just want to state here. We are talking about the role of women lawyers in addressing the issue of insecurity. Women have a multiplied task in dealing with insecurity. I want to tell you that we are not just women lawyers, but we are mothers. And when mothers are involved, we have a way of going about things. And what we are saying here is that if women are included in even mediation, the kidnapper that you're talking about, the bandit you're talking about, has a mother. And every person listens to this or her own mother. No matter what. If you're included, I believe we can start from our home. Not only as legal practitioners, but as people that build morals. And when we buy these morals into the children, and I've seen that, I've stayed in Kano, and I've seen that in northern Nigeria, women are giving some, like when you talk about going for campaign for this, talking to women, when you want to enter a form, that women are giving us sex more than men. So if women are allowed to sensitize these vulnerable people around us, I think we will go far. Just an add-on to what they have already said, and I thank you for giving me such a privilege.
Thank you very much for the pragmatic approach. I don't know by the way of action. Yes, women are mothers. And Huwaila Ibrahim Muhammad, Ghana State Deputy, Besides an example in equity, with the incident that took place at Jero, when we ultimately involved our executive member, the assistant secretary, that is the person that died, our secretary, the assistant secretary and person of Muhammad Abu Anas. The incident that happened has to do with his own biological father. He was kidnapped, 15 million was the negotiation, and he was the one that took 15 million down to the kidnappers. Shared the historical events. And for information to show up how well at this point just raised by Chinwe, the relevance of the topic to this incident, he said the kidnappers were within the range of 30 to 50 years. Within the range of 30 to 50 years. And that was what prompted after our health work on Friday. I delivered a summons on Friday, and it reflected in my summons this issue justice. And if we can say that we are not responsible to contribute towards the security of our nation, the fact that this is not your own biological son doesn't mean that you don't have the role to play. If you assist your children to become who they will be today, those other people, they will not live in isolation, they will mingle with them. So if we think as a responsibility upon ourselves, I think it will go in a long way in addressing this issue. So thank you very much once again. Please another round of applause for Tunde. So the last but not the least is upon Aisha Garbalaka, so also an active member of the branch of former Lawing Committee Secretary. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause for her. And I believe she also take us through the aspects of presentation.
Good evening. I wish to start on existing principle. I must say that my mentors have said about today. In fact, I don't even know where to start from, but I must say I'm honored to be selected as a discussant in this paper, alongside my mentors. Of course, the first person is Huwaila Ibrahim Muhammad. Of course, she's the MEA Women Forum Chairperson. And my next mentor here, Aisha Ibrahim, of course, our son to be, our first senior advocate to be in Kano State, female. Inshallah, we're looking forward to it, and more to come. And then a very active member here, Chinwe. So my mentors, thank you for gracing this occasion, because in fact it was a short notice, and yes, they still came. And unfortunately, I invited some other Kano members, and I don't know, for some reason they didn't come. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patience, for those who are still with us. Bearing in mind that our mentors have already covered most of the topic, and there's nothing much to add anyways, but maybe let me just say a few things. So basically, insecurity issues in Nigeria is just something that is so sensitive, and we're seeing what has happened in the past, like with the Chibok girls being kidnapped. So it's something that is really a sensitive thing for us women, and obviously as women we have to be, we have to try and safeguard, other vulnerable groups like women and children. Obviously the Constitution talks about, the fact that there's dignity of human persons under Section 34, under Section 35 it talks about personal liberty, and all these are what are being infringed, okay, by the kidnappers. And we try to look at this, what is the government really doing about this issue? Because if you look at it, yes, to some extent, women lawyers can actually, try to provide pro bono services and all that. But to what extent? If, obviously, under Section 14 of the 1999 Constitution, it is what? It is meant for the government to provide security and welfare So that is the main objective. So what are they really doing about this? We have to look at that first. When we talk about the fact that women lawyers are supposed to provide or talk about insecurity issues, to what extent can we do that if the government is not providing security? To what extent? The extent that we can go is to go to court or to provide legal services for these vulnerable groups. But it's so unfortunate that we're kind of helpless. To be honest, that's the reality of it. But then, hopefully, things will change. And my mentors have already said it all, so I don't really have much to say. Okay, thank you so much.
Please another big round of applause for our own Chairperson. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think at least we have come towards the end of this program. The next issue is the closing session. Closing remarks are vote of thanks by the Chairman of the Committee.